Hi, I'm Mike Richter, and today we're going to be going through part 3 of this 4-part series on wealth principles of winners based on this book, Secret to the Millionaire Mind by T Harv Eker. So, in this installment, we're going to be talking about 4 points. The first one is rich people are excellent receivers. They're able to receive compliments, they understand that they receive based on things that rightfully come to them. Second main point. Rich people choose to be paid based on the results they generate, not only based on the time that they work. Third point, rich people think both, not either or. There's a lot of times that we get caught up in our life and we say, well, you can have money or you can have happiness, when in reality you can have both. And finally, the fourth point is rich people focus on net worth and passive income, not on your working income. So let's get started. Rich people are excellent receivers. Most people grow up with low self-esteem because they're conditioned with punishment and things like that. So they have a lot of negative self-talk going on in the back of their mind. And it eats away at them thinking they're not worthy of good things, because for every one good thing that happens to them, a lot of times they've been beaten down, 10 times. Or they feel as though in order to be truly worthy, they need to do 10 things for every bad thing that they do. Whereas rich people and people that have a generally positive outlook are honest with themselves and know, hey, I'm not perfect, but I also understand that I live the story that I create for myself. And if I feel like I'm worthy of good things happening in my life, well then great. I'm going to typically be more grateful for the good things that do happen. Whereas if my mindset is stuck on I'm not worthy of anything good because I'm so bad at this, I've got these negative character flaws. Hate to break it to you, everybody's got character flaws. Nobody's perfect. But we can work on ourselves over time and to become more and more worthy. But the trick is to get out of the mindset that you don't deserve the things that come to you, right? Because a lot of times we are either intentionally or unintentionally bringing things into our lives that we have today. Giving and receiving is another piece of the receiver puzzle. A lot of times people are very comfortable with giving, but not too comfortable with receiving. We're conditioned to think this way because a lot of times we're told it's better to give than to receive, right? Don't get me wrong, there is a very real joy in giving, but at the same time, for every giver there needs to be a receiver, and sometimes we're not really willing to really receive. So I'll give you an example. When I was younger, whenever I'd receive a compliment, instead of actually accepting it and giving the other person the joy of having given something to me, I was always very quick to point out some small thing on them that made them unique and compliment them on that. So instead of accepting that compliment, I was instead deflecting. And it turns out that by simply accepting the compliment and in due time providing the pure gift of a compliment to somebody else, it really expands that ability to receive, and that expands your ability to give without it being kind of reflexive, where somebody says, oh, your hair looks nice, and I say, oh, well, you've got a great hat too. That's kind of a knee-jerk reaction instead of really thinking about something that's characteristically them and giving them a genuine compliment. So let's not rip off the people that are trying to give to us. Let's be good receivers. Now, the way I think about receiving things and giving, I think of each of us is a body of water, and if we don't get enough water in us, well, we're going to end up having a drought condition, and we're no longer a lake, we're just a puddle, or we're just dry ground that is a sucking pit of need that is waiting to be filled. And a lot of times we do that to ourselves by building up a dam so that we can't receive the good things that come to us. Now, I would encourage us to to be willing to receive and take off that dam so that you can get filled to your natural point. And sometimes we get overflow. And those are the times that we're challenged to grow and to grow our capacity, not only to give, but also to receive. Another thing that the rich typically are really good at is they work very hard and they believe they deserve to be compensated based on the value that they provide, right? It's not about how many hours they worked. It's about the net thing that happens because of their hard work. Like champions in sporting events put in a lot of time and effort and training. Contrary to popular belief, they aren't just born ready to win the Super Bowl or win at Wimbledon if you're a tennis fan like myself. Those champions worked hard to attain that ability to be masters of their craft to win those awards. So likewise, we should be willing to work hard and create value and be willing to accept what comes with that great value. Because a lot of times it's compensation over and above what we've done, and that's a wonderful thing. Another thing about being an excellent receiver is if you've got overflow in your life, that uniquely equips you to be an outrageous giver to somebody else who could use it. And maybe there's a cause that's really important to you. Well, if you've been making good money based on results, then you have the freedom to give of your own resources. And that's also a wonderful thing, because then you get to deem the worthiness of a cause and really encourage those who you give to. And another thing about money and character and all of that is money will only amplify what you already are. So if you were struggling and you were a giver, you were hospitable, you were all these things, well, as you grow in income and you grow in net worth, it's very likely that those same character traits that you've always had are going to just be amplified that much more. Another thing that makes people that are rich and work hard and do great things excellent receivers is they express gratitude in wonderful ways, because gratitude is one of those things that allows us to reward a giver without a tangible reward, right? Simply by saying thank you or being gracious with how you accept a gift, or gracious with how you accept the earnings that you've earned based on the value you've created, allows you to give an outpouring of that gratitude. And gratitude is one of those positive emotions that you can give a lot of and is really infectious to other people. So now we talked about receiving and receivership and being gracious with gifts. Let's talk about how we get compensated. A lot of times we look at compensation as a factor of, hey, I get paid X number of dollars per hour. And we fail to really take a look at that wage or that salary and say, it's not that I'm being paid for my hour. If I'm being paid for my hour, I could just be sitting in my underwear at home and just getting paid. No, what we're being paid for is the value that we create in the workplace or at home or wherever we're at, that we're creating that value. It is the value that we're creating that we're being paid for. So why not decide to unleash our earning potential and be willing to be paid strictly on the value that we create? There are a lot of ways to do this, but most places of business are not looking at compensating their employees like this right now. So this kind of goes in line with an old plan that my grandfather tried to sell me, just like many other people's parents try to sell them on a regular basis. And that old plan that's worked for a few generations back to a degree is you go to school, you get a job, you work hard, and in 50 years you live happily ever after. But here's the trick. There's no guarantee on that. There are a lot of people right now that are going to school, and when they get out of college, they still have no job prospects and no real marketable skills. So we have more and more educated people fighting for fewer and fewer positions in regular companies that offer long-term careers, right? So we passed $1 trillion in student loan debt not too long ago. It's been a couple years back, but there are a lot of people that are unable to pay back their student loans because of the fact that they don't have a job. So they take on 40 or 50 grand in student loans, and they have no way of realistically paying it back because the job prospects that sold them into going to college in the first place are not necessarily reality on the flip side of it. I'm not saying that it's wrong to go to college or anything like that. What I'm saying is that the plan that you go to school and automatically it entitles you to a job is not reality. What's reality is you need to find where you can create value for other people, or you can create value for a company so that they can increase their profits. And the degree to which you can increase their profits, that's the value that you bring to their enterprise. But the cool thing about that is if you're able to generate value and generate profits for a business, there are certain elements of that skill that you can use in some sort of side hustle. So if you're in sales, for example, when you learn salesmanship at your regular job, well, that doesn't prevent you from being able to sell other products or be an affiliate marketer or something like that on the side. In fact, those skills end up increasing your value over time as long as you're willing to reinvest in those skills and master them. Bottom line, though, is that there's nothing wrong with a steady income as long as you realize that most people don't get wealthy just doing their 9 to 5. And most people end up allowing their 9 to 5 and their wages based on time to limit the ability that they have to earn what they're really worth. So the biggest rule that most wealthy people have is they never want to place a ceiling on their earning potential. And when people get locked into managerial salary positions, a lot of times they end up working 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week for the same salary that they would at 40 hours a week. And those 80-hour work weeks end up taking a toll, and they're still limited on how much they can earn. Whereas somebody that negotiates a partnership or profit sharing or stock options or working a portion of their compensation to be on commission, well, that removes a portion of that ceiling from their earning potential. So if you're currently working a normal 9 to 5 or regular wage job, you could consider maybe starting a business on the side or trying to negotiate some sort of commission-based fee structure if that makes sense in your company. Maybe stock options would be a good idea to start working toward, or if you're creating a lot of value for the business, maybe look at profit sharing where you get a portion of the profits based on the value that you put into the company. And finally, a partnership if you're in a professional services situation, or say you're an apprentice electrician. Maybe it's one of those things where as you grow to be a better and better electrician, over time you might negotiate a partnership agreement with your primary electrician contractor so that as you work harder and as you bring value to the enterprise and as you bring more clients in, you can expect higher compensation based on not only the work that you're doing, but leveraging all the skills, talents, and abilities that you've got to earn even more than you would have just by your own blood, sweat, and tears. So we talked about compensation based on value and not necessarily based on time. But another thing that rich people really understand is the concept of both and eliminating these either or kind of propositions whenever possible. So there's a saying that goes like this: You can't have your cake and eat it too. To me, it doesn't make sense to have a cake in the first place unless you're eating it. You might disagree, right? But if there's a cheesecake or a carrot cake out there and I get a piece of it, I'm going to eat it. And sometimes I might eat less of it if I'm watching my weight, or sometimes I might eat more of it if I'm celebrating. But the point is, why have a cake in the first place if you can't eat it? But the basic idea is, how can you find ways to get both in your life? Sometimes you want to have money and then you think that you have to or get rid of some of your happiness or sacrifice time with your family. But in reality, if you're being paid based on the value that you create and not based on your time, well, if you're really good at creating value in smaller chunks of time, then you free yourself up to spend more time with your family. Something to think about. Now, another way that you can get both, I'll give you an example from a real estate deal that I did not too long ago. I wanted both a good location, a good rental property, and a good price. And the sellers at first only wanted a good price. They didn't really care that I was looking to rent out the property or the business end of how much I could afford to pay and still have it be a good rental property. So at first they rejected my offer, and a couple months down the road, the house still wasn't selling, and they had significant holding costs associated with that because they weren't living in the house, but they were still paying a mortgage, insurance, and taxes on the house. So the second time through, they were willing to accept my offer, and I was able to get a great rental property at a great price, and they happened to also get something that they needed. They got the pain of paying those payments with no benefit removed from them. So in that case, it was a win-win. I got what I wanted, they got what they wanted, and it worked out for everybody. But the thing is, it wouldn't have happened if I wasn't patient for good things to happen. And a lot of times, I think that's what keeps us back from getting the things that we really want in life, is that we're not patient enough to wait for them, or we're not patient enough to put in the effort over an extended period of time to make it happen. Right? Most people that got famous on YouTube don't do it just in one video. Most of the time, it's they've created content for an extended period of time, and only after so many videos or so many views did the YouTube algorithm finally pick them up. Just like most celebrities. Most celebrities worked really hard for an extended period of time, and then all of a sudden, their talents are recognized and their career goes off without a hitch from there, with the occasional drama. But the point is, patience and perseverance typically yield great results if you're willing to put in the work over time. So when I was still working in the military, I had a friend that really liked cars, and I really like houses. So it was an interesting dynamic that we had where some of my rental properties, the mortgage and all the costs associated with holding them was less than his car payments. So that led to a really interesting dynamic where he would talk about how he doesn't want to wait to enjoy his life, but he wants to enjoy his life in the here and now. And he fully understands that there's certain consequences that come with that, right? You have high car payments for a period of time if you really want a nice car right now. Whereas I'm kind of in the boat where cars aren't a big deal to me, but when I do want to get a car, I want to make sure that I don't have to hurt myself or my family situation in order to make that happen. Also, I don't really prioritize cars right now, but it would be really cool to have a 97 Supra twin turbo sometime in the near future. But I need to work really hard to make that happen, because good things can happen. It's just a matter of where my priorities lie. And speaking of priorities, you don't have to live life and say, I'm going to make a living now and then I can enjoy later. If you are finding ways to increase your income, chances are you will also find ways to enjoy just a little bit. And if you were to take time to set aside money to intentionally enjoy, provided that you're not in any kind of serious debt trouble or anything like that, if you've got, say, 10% of your income set aside to just have fun and to enjoy, well, as you increase your income, that 10% gets bigger and bigger, and you'll be able to enjoy more and more. One big thing about money and how it works as far as a not an either an or, but a both kind of mentality, rich people understand that there is no such thing really as hoarding money. The only effective way to hoard money right now is to take cash and to put it under your mattress, where you end up losing money due to inflation. But having your money in a bank account or something like that, the banks will end up loaning out your money and paying you interest for you having your money in the bank, or you're investing it, or you're buying a car, and then the money that you're using to buy that car goes ahead and cycles to the next step of the process. But the point is, money doesn't stay still for long. Money tends to go to things that create value for other people, especially when we're talking about voluntary interaction, where instead of being forced to pay taxes, for instance, you volunteer to go buy a car, or you volunteer to go buy a house. You're getting value out of the transaction, or you wouldn't do it in the first place. And that happens with every step of the process. So if you look at, for example, like a baker, right? The baker goes ahead and sells bread to a housewife. The baker ends up with $5, and the housewife ends up with bread and the other things that she needed for dinner or whatnot. Now, the baker can then go to a tailor and take several of those $5 that he earned along the way and buy a suit. So now the baker's got a suit, the tailor has however much his suits cost, and then he can then go and buy some sporting equipment. And all along the way, everybody who is voluntarily providing services or goods in exchange for money are getting value on either end of the transaction. So it's not a win-lose proposition as much as it's a win-win and everybody is happy. So the more win-wins you can create, the better off you'll be, and the more both kind of situations you can creatively come up with, instead of thinking of either or, which really limits us because it shuts us off to the possibility of getting more than we expect. So finally, we'll talk about how the rich focus on net worth and passive income instead of working income. There are four main factors that determine the growth of your net worth. And those four factors are income, savings, investment, and your abilities to simplify your life. First off, income. There's two basic types of income. And those basic types of income are active income. That's income based on your time and your labor. That's you working and providing value actively based on your knowledge, skills, and talents. And passive income is where you invest money and the money makes money for you. One way to think about income is your different income streams are kind of like streams of water filling your lake. Now, ideally, you want to make sure that each of the streams is providing you enough to fill your lake. And if you're depending on only one stream of income, if for whatever reason it stops, well, you're in a situation where you're going to be in trouble, and the amount of water in your lake is going to decrease over time. Whereas if you have multiple streams of income coming in, say one from working income, one from dividend stocks, one from a house, one from some apartments, things like that, well, that provides a lot more stability for your income over time. Now, the second factor to growing net worth is saving. Now, one of the biggest things to understand about money and growing wealth is it's not what you earn, it's what you keep. And your ability to keep money back from your earnings will open up the ability for you to invest, say, in property or dividend stocks or something that can create passive income for you, not only now, but in the future as well. The third element was, of course, investing, and the whole idea there is money making money. I've already provided a couple of examples, being dividend stocks or real estate as vehicles to gain passive income. There's several different ways to earn and gain passive income, but those are a couple to mention to you. I'll be releasing other videos talking about different kinds of ways you can attain passive income. So look forward to that in the future. And finally, the fourth factor of growing your net worth is your ability to simplify. What does it really take for you to live your life? And the less it takes for you to live your life, the sooner you can be free to live it. So for example, if you're accustomed to $10,000 a month, well, you're going to have to find ways of replacing that $10,000 a month before you can actually stop working. Whereas if you could be comfortable living on, say, $3,000 or $4,000 a month, then it's a lot easier to attain that goal, and you'll be able to achieve that much sooner than you would otherwise. Now, the reason why I talk about simplification is one of the biggest things that I see in people's lives is as they get raises or as they achieve certain milestones in their career, the tendency is to increase your expenses and to really spend all the money that you got in your raise kind of as a way of celebrating. You say, hey, I've earned this, so why shouldn't I spend it all? But the trick is, when you do that, you end up selling yourself short because you're not able to invest in the future so that one day you don't have to work as hard to provide the same level of income because you are creating new streams of income to fill your lake. And something else to really think about is wherever your attention goes, that's where your energy tends to flow. And you might notice this in your job where your boss or your organization has certain goals or certain metrics that they're measuring. And because they're measuring those goals and they're holding people accountable based on those goals, there are certain things that are reflected there. Whereas if you're choosing to measure other things, you would see more effort, more attention going to those goals that your superiors have set out for you. But something that I would suggest to you is pay attention to what you are paying attention to. I pay attention to my net worth and my passive income sources. So based on that and seeing my net worth increase slowly over time really encourages me to find new and innovative ways to increase my net worth. And same thing with my passive income. If I've found several different sources of passive income, I might go ahead and either generate new sources of passive income in that same vein, or I might look for other sources of passive income just because I'm paying attention to that. And the quicker and quicker I get to my goals, the better off me and my family will be for that. So pay attention to the things that are important to you. And as long as you're prioritizing those things and you're checking up on them regularly, your energy is going to flow to that and you're going to see results come from that. So take some time to look at that. So just as a recap, there were 4 basic points that we went over for this part of this 4-part series. And they were: rich people are excellent receivers. They're willing to accept a compliment, and they understand that giving and receiving are 2 sides of the same coin. And gratitude is a wonderful thing that you can give to those who are giving to you. The second point was rich people are choosing to be paid based on results and not based on time. The coolest thing about that is if you can generate results in a much shorter period of time, or if you can earn a year's worth of income in a few months, that's an awesome thing. Whereas if you're stuck with a 9-to-5, you're limiting your ability to use your time to generate value. Now, understandably, you may not have any knowledge, skills, or abilities or talents that can drive you past what you're earning, but if you do, you might want to find a way to create a side business or a side hustle. That way, you're able to capture some of that ability. The third piece is rich people think about both, not either or propositions. You can have money and happiness in life. Go out and find creative ways to make that happen. And fourth, we talked about rich people focusing on net worth and passive income and not necessarily on active income, because you cannot retire if you don't have passive income or a nest egg to fall back on. Whereas if you've got enough passive income to exceed your expenses, bam, you're free, you're done. So say you need $4,000 to live on and you've got passive income of $5,000 a month coming in, you're done. You can wake up every morning and not have to work for active income another day in your life. You might choose to do that because you want to, not because you have to. And that's financial freedom for you. So thank you so much for tuning in for this third installment of the 4-part series. If you feel that this has been valuable to you in any way, by all means, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you've got friends that might benefit from this, by all means, go ahead and share it freely. I'd appreciate that. If you'd like to hear more from this channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for more. And if you have any questions or comments about the content that I presented here, by all means, go ahead and put them down in the comment section below. I'd love to interact with you. Thank you so much. Have a fantastic day. And remember, you're only one action away from the rest of your life. Choose your actions wisely.